Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And before I get started, I do talk about the viewer's pick of the week at the end of the video, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured. Now, let's jump in. I actually had a pretty smallish haul. It is about 9 comics this week, but there's a lot of big titles out this week. So number 9 for me is Pine in Merrimac, issue 5. This is the last issue of this mini, but also felt like it wasn't the last issue. It's kind of a to be continued situation, and honestly this one just kind of lost the plot for me a little bit. We get to see different timelines with this character. Maybe her husband's dead, maybe he's not, maybe she has something to do with her sister dying, maybe she doesn't. There's not a ton answered here, and I feel like the mystery of her sister, again, kind of got lost in the shuffle. Maybe that was part of the experiment here, but I don't know. It was hard for me to connect because I feel like there wasn't enough concreteness here. I think everything was up in the air by the end of it, and again, maybe that's the point to get a volume 2, but for me, it just kind of lost my place with the plot. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is the topic of our video, DC Pride issue 1. Now, honestly, I enjoyed my books this week. I enjoyed this Pride book, but if I had to compare this Pride book to the Marvel book, which I will be talking about, I'm kind of tired of the anthology format. You know, I like seeing characters that we haven't seen in a while, like Aqualad, or different characters like Superboy. That's a more popular character. So I enjoy just seeing the different queer characters, either if they've been shown a lot or haven't, but they are all kind of fluffy stories, right? They're not progressing a story at all. There was one that's going to continue in Flash, but for the most part, they're just kind of fun reads. And for me, I enjoy just seeing more serialized storytelling, and I want to see these characters more on a monthly basis. So I enjoyed all the stories. I enjoyed the art was really good for them, but there wasn't anything that was a big standout for me, which is why this is a bit lower, because it's very familiar to their previous volumes. So I'm going to give that 3 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to the other Pride book, which is number 7, and that is X-Men The Wedding Special, issue 1. The reason this isn't higher is more personal preferences of characters I really enjoy to read. Am I a huge Mystique fan? No. Am I a huge Destiny fan? No. But I enjoy just seeing them getting married. I really like the flow of this book. It's kind of the complete opposite of what I was saying with that DC Pride book, where that's an anthology. There's a lot of fluffy stories. Here you get the fluffy stories, but it's intertwined into a bigger narrative of these two characters renewing their vows and their wedding day. I think it's a renewal. I don't think it's their actual wedding. Renewing their wedding vows. So it's technically a wedding special, but technically not if they're already. But you get to see other characters that are close to them, like Rogue, talk about her romance with Gambit. You get to see Wolverine and him kind of being this like father figure to these other LGBTQ characters. And I enjoyed seeing the seamlessness of that. I enjoyed seeing everyone kind of affected by Destiny and Mystique's love. I really loved Emma here. I think Emma was really great. There, I feel like with some hints that maybe she is queer, and which I feel like is always kind of been there. There's this panel where they're like, oh, and people you couldn't love, and Jean Grey's in the background. So I'm like, oh, there's some definitely interesting tidbits here that doesn't officially say that Emma's queer, but kind of alludes to it throughout the story. So I like that. But it's kind of the opposite of what I was saying with DC, is that like, oh, it was really nice to see characters you haven't seen in a while. And same thing for Marvel. This is always really a good opportunity to see like Caroline and Nico, where we rarely see them. You don't ever really get to see Julie Power anymore. So I'm like, oh, I kind of wish instead of seeing Rogue for the 10th time, I would want to see a different character we don't get to see very much. So this is a very X-Men heavy book. But I still want to rank this higher because it does have a continuous story that just feels a little bit more substantial. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I don't think it was a perfect Pride book, but I did like this one better this year than DC. But, you know, celebrate Pride and get both books if you want to add those to the pull list, because they both were fun. So moving on to number 6, which is Green Arrow issue 12. This was also just kind of a fun story. This originally was supposed to be a 12-issue book. You could kind of tell this was supposed to be like the ending of the series, but they're like, no, we're actually going to continue into Absolute Power if this book was successful and creative team wants to work on it still. There are definitely elements where I've seen before, like you talk about the island a lot, and it's just really Green Arrow reminiscing about all of that and his connection to the family. But overall, it's a cool character story. I like that they end up on the island later. It was a good action issue for the most part. Did it blow my mind? No. Again, I think there's a lot of stuff we've already seen here, but I still had a good time as a Green Arrow fan. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Jackpot and Black Cat, issue 3. Also in the Pride vein, this is included as their Pride books because it does have a lot to do with Black Cat and her new relationship, her new girlfriend. And I like this issue. I actually think this is one of the better issues because it does focus on MJ and Black Cat's relationship, where they learn that the girlfriend is a villain, or at least MJ does, and now everyone's kind of in the know, and you're like, okay, what do we do? Do we try to stop her, or are we going to let it go because you love her? So I like that. I like the tension between them. I'm curious to see where it's going to end up going. The art's pretty solid. You know, there's definitely still moments that I don't know if I completely connect to. Like, obviously, Paul's not my favorite character, and I think there's moments where you could go even further with MJ and Black Cat, friendship and focus on them, but I enjoyed the issue, and I'm interested to see where it ends up going. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Primer issue 3, a book that's been really a dark horse for me. I love it. It's just a fun little all ages book where honestly the story continues really, really well. Every issue there's something big, which is surprising because this is being taken out of a graphic novel where you don't really need these cliffhangers. It does feel like they're working within the single issue format, where in this issue you get to see our hero play with her powers and people find out who she is, especially her foster family, all while you have the drama of her bio dad trying to reach out to her, and she's like, well, where do I kind of fit in the law? Where do I fit in this family? There's some good drama. The artwork is really pretty, and it's just a fun book where there's some good character work, some fun twists with the plot, and it moves everything forward really, really well. It progresses the story, keeps your interest. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, a little tad bit lower than it usually is, but Ultimate Spider-Man issue 5. This is more of an exposition issue, not a bad exposition issue, but it has to do with Harry's past, how he became the Green Goblin. That's the issue. There's some really good lines here about him kind of being an anti-hero, but honestly, throughout the book, you really lean towards like, no, he's gonna be the bad guy. Him and Gwen do not kind of leave a good taste in your mouth, especially as you're teaming up with Dr. Octopus. But I liked it. You know, I missed Peter in this one. I wanted to see more Peter, and I don't necessarily know if we needed a full issue of Green Goblin, but there's some really good goodies in here. There's some good moments, and the dialogue is just really, really strong for something that is just, again, carrying the weight of, like, let me tell you why this character is interesting. And obviously, you're a fan of Harry, but it's like, why this version of Harry? So I liked it. I thought it was pretty solid. Gonna give that one 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Grommets, issue 1. This is a slice of life book. I'm going to say it. There's not much of like twists and turns. It's just about this guy who goes to a new town, has to make friends, trying to relate to them. He likes comics, he likes skateboarding, and he gets into the culture of skateboarding. That is pretty much the issue. But I thought the character work was really well done. I enjoyed the characters they introduced. They introduced the ensemble very well. You like the main character well enough. The artwork is really striking. It's a really easy read to get through. There's nothing that's too clunky in the dialogue. And overall, just a solid book. It's fun. If you like the skating culture, I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And it gave me definitely enough to want to read issue 2. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, this was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, The Return, the last issue. I really love this one. It's so interesting to see a book that, you know, again, we have like 3 other types of Mighty Morphin Power Ranger timelines in these comics, but somehow this still works and feels different even though it's the same characters. And what I really like is that it's not too bogged down with mythos. So if you'd never really read Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you could really jump into this and relate to it. It just has to do with legacy and where these characters are going to go. It had to do with Kimberly's love for Tommy. Tommy returned. Are they gonna still be Rangers? You get to see the full effects of their kid. I love seeing her in action. There's also just some fun moments of just seeing Kimberly become the Pink Power Ranger again, seeing their daughter wear the Green Power Ranger suit, all while you're giving this villain a little bit more of a backstory and reason to fight. And there's a good cliffhanger with this mysterious White Ranger where you're like, okay, is the series going to continue? Because I want to see more from this. I just love the interactions with all the characters. It's just a creative team that understands the Power Rangers really well and able to just give something different from a franchise that we've been seeing a lot from in different mediums and obviously the comic medium in particular. And I just think this nails it. And if you like the Power Rangers, it's a really, really fun book that kind of delivers on all spectrums. So giving that 4.5 stars. That is my pick of the week. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was. And last week's viewer pick of the week was Superman. And here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.